Hello, everyone. So we're just getting started here, and it's giving me a countdown, but like, I know that we're already live streaming. So, oh, good. I see you all in here. Hi, everybody. It is so great to see you. Come on in. I'm going to give you some time to get settled. I know our guest is already here. And Jess, I see that you're watching. I'm going to give it a minute before I have you join because I want to do a couple of introductions and things, and then I'll have you come on in. So get settled, grab yourself a cup of tea. It'll be like 3 more minutes before I bring you in. But everyone else, come on into the community. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Oh, Jen says, Burr from Boston. Is it cold in Boston today? I'm actually not in Boston today. I am in, hold on, I have to share my screen like before I actually forget to do it. I am actually in New York. And not only am I in New York, but I am in my brother's apartment and New Yorkers, you guys will get this, in like his very tiny guest room that is too small to fit the mattress and the chair. So this is the mattress, the guest bedroom, and here I am sitting in the chair, and we're doing this really awesome webinar. I want to mention a couple things here, and for some reason the screen is like really, really small. So I want to see if I can make this bigger for you, but we'll see if I can. That's okay. All right, we'll make it work. So a couple things that I want to mention for you. First of all, I want to start off with the thing that I always start off these calls with. So for those of you who are attending live, go ahead and drop in the chat, where in the world are you and what does it look like outside your window today? Jen obviously knew what to do because she already started with the emotional response to cold Boston fall. Damaris is also in New York, sunny and chilly. Michelle is in Chicago, cold and wet. Hema is in Toronto, chilly too. It's just cold everywhere, drippy and wet and or sunny and cold. Now you have a chance to all warm up. So everybody get like something nice and warm, a blanket, a cup of hot tea, whatever you need to get through the day. We are here with you and we're here to support you. Now, the results of the election have made this topic of extreme interest to a lot of people. And one thing that we want to do, regardless of where you are in your current mindset right now, is make sure that we make these resources as available as possible to everyone. So one thing that I want to do that we don't always do in our member community is actually, after this recording, we're going to put this video on YouTube to make it accessible to other people who are not yet members of Wonderful. So to that, I want to actually take a minute to introduce myself, because I know all of you know me, but some people who might be watching this from outside the Wonderful member community might not know me. So for everyone else who is new to this space, Jen, like answering things live. Jen, a recording always automatically starts. So whenever we live stream, it's recording. So it's fantastic. But we are an international community of women travelers. We're called Wonderful. My name is Beth. I'm the founder and CEO. We started this organization as a blog in 2009. Now we are a robust community of travelers, travel content creators, and small business owners. We're on a mission to change the face of travel, to make it more inclusive and supportive of women, to give women that 85% of travel making decisions that they already have, bringing that power back into the hands of women. So we plan group trips and experiences for our members. We have an online member community where you can check in and meet other travelers. We do workshops and webinars just like this one. And if you aren't part of our network yet, come on in to sheswonderful.com and check it out. Of course, as I say all of this stuff, all of the members in our chat, which the YouTubers won't see, are going to be laughing because they're like, obviously, we know everything about this and we know what you do. But I hope that a lot of people come and learn more about our community from this call, and also learn more about some of the really amazing information that we're going to be sharing. So I'm really thrilled that we have somebody here who is an incredible expert in the space of moving abroad. She's done it many, many times. And I want to take a minute to introduce her. Before I do that, let me give you a shout out, because we used to do this at the end of our sessions, and now I want to do it at the beginning, because at the end of the session, we're like all ready to go and take a big nap or have lunch or whatever we do. So here's a quick look at some of the things that are coming up, especially for members who are looking for what's coming up next. anyone who's not, to see what's on the radar. There's a few things that we have that are really, really fun on our agenda for our wonderful community. On December 6th, on Sunday, our DC hub is actually hosting this, but I'm taking it over. They're doing a virtual holiday paint and sip. So they have these just like a fun gathering. So all online. You can purchase a painting kit from, there's like a few links that they have on Amazon. Bring whatever you want to drink, and we'll just get together and do a paint night all together virtually all around the world. How fun is that? And then on Saturday, December 14th, that is our book club. Every other month, we have a travel book that we read together. Our December book is 12 Trips in 12 Months by Jen Ruiz. It just came out. Jen is actually joining us for the conversation. So it's happening on Saturday, the 14th of December at 12 Eastern time. That's noon. She'll come and talk a little bit about her journey and writing the book and her story. And so it is not to be missed. It's so fun that we're able to get the authors to come and join us for these book clubs and then really just talk with them about their book. So stay tuned. There's some good stuff. Of course, there's all sorts of other things happening in the community all the time. Masterminds, meetups, everything, workshops, everything else. So come check us out. But make sure, members, that you're looking in that left-hand sidebar of your member hub. The event section is going to have all of the upcoming events, both local and online, that you can attend. Okay. Housekeeping done. Let's dive into the meat of this conversation because it is so good. I want to introduce, you know, if I expand my screen, it can be a little bit bigger for you, thank God. How this works. We're having a live conversation in this community now. If you're watching the recording, it's a recorded conversation. We are also documenting this for all of our wonderful members. So you'll be able to find this recording ongoing in our digital content library. If you're here live, you get the best perk of the perks, which is that you can ask questions right in the chat. So be here with us, be present with us. I will help facilitate Q&A that we'll do at the end, but also Jess is a pro. She's not new to the internet at all, nor are any one of us. I'm sure she can help answer some questions live, but I will keep track of a lot of them as well so that we can make sure that you all are represented. I'll also be dropping links in the chat that are relevant to help you out. So we'll have a really fun conversation today. And now, without further ado, let's actually introduce the woman that's entering the room. So Jess, I'm going to sing your praises a little bit, and then I'm going to invite you on the stage. Jess Drucker helps LGBTQ folks, their families, and allies move, live, and thrive abroad through her company, Rainbow Relocation Strategies, as well as providing consulting services for corporate clients in the global mobility space. She also owns her own media and consulting company. This woman is like extremely busy. She runs Adventure Called Media. She produces books, a podcast, a global relocation guide, and shortly, a course on relocating for queer folks. Jess is a public speaker, an author. Her book, How to Move Abroad and Why It's the Best Thing You'll Do, is fantastic. My uncle actually just picked it up from the store the other day and was like, Beth, you're mentioned in the book. And I was like, yeah, I know the author. It's out there. People are picking it up. And a podcast host. She's producer of the Adventure Calls podcast. She's a mom of two. She's a busy woman, and I'm really excited to be welcoming her to the stage. So let me send an invite for you, Jess, and you can come on and join us. And I know that all of you are going to get that invite been sent. All of you are going to get so many great tips today. And also make sure that you have questions at the ready, because I know that there's going to be a lot of them. So we'll have her come on in and we can get started. I hear her because you know what? I'm sharing my screen. That's why you can't see me. There you are. Hi.
Hi. Am I on? Is this thing?
You are on. This thing is working. I know. That's the one thing about this is like if I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the person, and I do that all the time because life. How are you, Jess?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. It's great to see you.
Live up to all your hype.
Oh, you've already done it. You're already there. Yeah. So I know you have slides. I'm going to let you, it's pretty,
there you go.
I have slides. I do. I can do this. I'll be here in the background. I'm going to turn off my camera.
How do I share my slides with everyone?
Right on the bottom of your screen.
There we go. It's not my first time, I swear.
No, I know it's not, but it's a new platform.
It is a new platform, actually.
But it's nice. We Mighty Networks, you guys are doing a good job. It's been working really well. So we'll let her get her slides set up, and everybody else.
I can only share a Chrome tab. That's why. Hold on a second. I'm going to open it up.
Oh, yeah. Right. We're not at PowerPoint level yet.
Sorry.
We'll let you get there. Pamela's in New York too. I'm looking to make the most of my membership. I love that. Siobhan is in a cool north of England. Olivia's in Orange County, California. Of course it's sunny. Olivia, like, can you just come to a meeting sometime and like have it not be sunny and beautiful in Orange County? Because like that always happens. Jennifer's in Los Angeles, also probably experiencing that. Libby's in Rochester, New York, loving the change of seasons. Elizabeth's in Atlanta, cloudy and wet.
Should I share?
Share, baby, share.
I hope I'm doing this right, you guys.
This looks
What do
great.
you see?
Right now I see your presenter screen.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Sorry, everyone. Good?
Beautiful.
Okay,
Perfect.
thank you. Okay, fantastic. Hi. Should I kick things off, everyone? Are we good, Beth, you think?
We're good. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Tax stuff out of the way. I love that you were like, she's a pro at this. I'm like, I've never used this platform before, but that's fine. Hey, everyone. So I'm really excited to be here. I think the timing on this is really good. I hope I can provide some value. I feel there's a big sense of urgency from everyone I know in my world, and you might be feeling the same way, or you're not, or this is just an interesting lunch for you. But so what I'm going to be talking about today is really how to move abroad, preferably in 2025. This is really like a practical exit strategy guide. I'm trying to be as practical as possible. And the reason why is honestly because the minute the election results started to look the way they did, everyone got online and started teaching you how to move abroad. And that's fine. I mean, everyone has done it. And so everyone wants to get on and help you. And that's great. But I just want to make sure that you've got like, rather than having a singular experience of like one expat who moved to one place, I'd like to just give you sort of like an overview of like how things actually work. So I hope that helps. Yeah, a little bit about me. I think Beth already did a really good intro. I have lived abroad for about 15 years in my life. It was a big chunk of my life, 15 years in a row. I lived in Costa Rica, in Guatemala, in Germany, and in England. I did it, as you see from this about me, as a student in a lot of places, but also I worked for tourism boards. I was an English teacher, but I lived and worked in many different ways with different visas. So I hope that I can be helpful there. Just so that you know a little bit about maybe who I was, maybe not who I am right now, but some character building moments. I hitchhiked across Tierra del Fuego on the Chilean side where there's no public transportation, and I took semi-trucks alone with men, so that was fun, but I lived, so that's cool. I was rammed by a cow in India, not a buffalo as they put on the x-rays, because cows are sacred. And I was actually almost kidnapped by a monk in Cambodia. Character building. Now I'm just a boring old mom of two. I'm married and I have a pug, and I'm the founder of Rainbow Relocation Strategies. So that's just a little bit about me and why I'm talking to you today. And so with Rainbow, really, we're looking to be like the leading voice for, honestly, for queer folks, for diverse expats looking to thrive abroad. I do that through content and courses. We have a Facebook community for queer expats called Queer Expats Worldwide. And I obviously do coaching, and right now quite a lot of coaching. And we do workshops and training and strategy for corporate teams as well. Honestly, we're just trying to be as impactful as possible for a subset of expats that don't get a lot of attention but have very specific needs. And right now, that's what's driving a lot of people coming to talk to me, is needs that aren't going to be met in the US probably anymore. I've never seen my presentation bounce like this, so I'm really excited about this. The goal for today is, if you're feeling in any way like you really want to do this right now, but you feel a little bit overwhelmed, I want to empower you today. That's really my goal, is for you to walk away from today just feeling like, okay, I know like what I should actually do to get started, so that this can go from like a thing that you think about, maybe a lot, to a thing that you can actually start doing. We'll talk about why moving abroad could be the best thing that you ever do. I want to just tease a little bit out in terms of like, what are you looking for? Like, what's your vision for your life? A little bit. We're not going to get too into that. Explaining about visas and residency and understanding how it is that people actually get to move abroad. And then just some of the like realities about like getting to another country. And then hopefully if we have time, we'll get to the FAQs and have you guys ask questions so that I can be as helpful as possible with anything that I don't cover. This is not a shameless plug for my book. I mean, that's what it looks like, whatever, who cares if you buy it, that's great. But why moving abroad could be the best thing that you do. So the reason why I'm framing this way right up at the top of this presentation is because I think some people right now are, and it's fine and it makes sense, but you're moving from a place of maybe like fear or anxiety or rushing, like, oh God, I got to get out of here. You know, that's what I'm picking up in a lot of my conversations. But let's not forget that moving abroad really can be and always has been something that's excellent for you to do in your life. I know that Beth can attest to this too. The time that you spend abroad, you get skills and experiences that add up in a way that no other experience in your life can. You truly do take your life into your own hands. If you move to another country, that's not something that anyone in your family would expect you to do. That's, you know, you're moving yourself to a whole other piece of dirt on planet Earth, and you're doing that yourself. And that's really taking life into your own hands. You also get to know your true self. In different situations where the whole context around you changes, the core of you that remains is truly who you are, and it's a way to build your own confidence and to know who you are given different contexts. Something that means a lot to me is that you learn that normal is meaningless. It's arbitrary. What's normal here is not normal there. What's normal there doesn't make any sense to you until one day it kind of does. But I think when you take away this idea of normalcy or what you're supposed to do, I think that's where you truly start to find freedom in your life, is when you don't care as much what other people think because you just realize that it's arbitrary. Clearly, you learn to communicate with anyone, possibly in multiple languages, but in order to have success living amongst people that you don't know their context for things or their culture, you really do learn to communicate with anyone. And this is a big one, especially in my experience for women, but you learn to ask for help. When you are living in another country, especially where they don't speak your language, but really anywhere you live abroad, you don't know how to do a lot of things. I mean, it could just be like you're at the store and you're like, why is everybody getting to go get their cheese? But no, I can't get in line. It's like, oh, you have to take a ticket or whatever it is. So you have to learn to ask for help, or it could be in bigger, more confusing ways that you need to ask for help. But it takes off like a wall where you don't have to pretend that you know what's going on. And I feel like that's a skill that we need in our daily lives. Superhero street smarts, you learn to read people, you learn to understand lots of different clues and context clues for things, and you really do pick up a lot of street smarts. You become more flexible, you're stronger. Honestly, moving abroad is not easy. And that's one of the things that's going on right now I see online, is a lot of people talking about kind of like the shiny side of things, which is true. There's like a really exciting part of moving abroad, but it's hard. And you will get knocked down and you will be embarrassed. You're going to make a ton of mistakes and you're not going to know what's going on a lot. But when you can learn to navigate in those gray areas, you really do become stronger and more flexible, and you can truly like go with the flow in your life. These are life skills that you then bring with you in your life. You learn to be brave. And I think this is really important. I mean, moving abroad is brave. You're moving to a whole new place and starting a new life. And the grooves that go into your brain then, as a result of that action, you learn to become and to stay brave in your life. And then depending on what you want, and we'll talk about this a little bit, you improve your career prospects. I mean, you're making an international network. So this is preachy, but I just want you to really feel empowered and not just like, oh God, we got to get out of here, which is, I'm only saying that because I'm picking that up a lot. And again, just thinking about this in general, another way I want to just frame the conversation, do you really want to move abroad? Like, is that actually what you want? I mean, it's a big step. It takes a lot. It's a really like muscular action. You know, it really is.
Oh, I think we just lost her. I thought it was me, but maybe it was her. We'll let her come back. Everyone's like, oh no, where did she go? That's okay. We'll let her come back. I'm seeing some really good things in here so far. So I want to hop into the chat and take a look at some of the things that I've been saying so far. Jen has been talking about her experience living abroad in Germany. I know a couple people have bought the book so far. Go ahead and continue dropping in the chat to what you're hoping to get out of this and what you're hoping to learn today. We can make sure that we cover some of that, but we will also let Jess go ahead and get back in and get situated. There she is. Hey, we lost you for a second. I think she's going to find her way. She will find her way to us. In the meantime, keep on going into the chat and sharing what you're looking at. But yeah, this is, I think I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. You know, when we actually first scheduled this session, this was months ago. And I think now the idea of moving abroad is something that so many people, are you back?
I'm back. I didn't know I left.
Yay! I know, you disappeared for a little bit.
How long have I been
sorry you've been monologuing at us. Probably the last maybe 2 minutes.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, but we're on this slide. Wait, did you guys?
We're still on this slide.
And you knew this slide. Fine.
Yeah, you were just talking about, yes. Yep. Yeah, so that's okay. Just rewind 2 minutes.
Okay. Oh, okay. But
You're great.
You get
You'll be fine.
Really just thinking about running. What are you running toward and what are you running away from? And I think both are totally valid, but thinking about what you're running toward and looking forward to a new life abroad versus just running away from things that you want to escape here in the US, if you're all in the US, I don't know, but for example. And so I think it's important to think okay, well, yes, you're leaving here, but when you leave, you're gone from here. So now what? What are you looking forward to and what are you looking for in your life? And Beth talks a lot about this in her book, which honestly, I did not plan this, but I do just happen to have right here. And I'm not saying I mentioned in it, but it's 3 times that I mentioned in it, but that's fine. But in Beth's book, she also has this idea of always having a solo traveler mindset. So you could even be traveling in your hometown. And I think it's important to also think about that in the context of being an expat. You can start having an expat mindset now as well. And we'll get into what it's like to be an expat a little bit, but just before you even go, just starting to think about someone, think about yourself from an immigrant's perspective and what you take for granted and what you really need and what is really easy in your life right now that might not be. And if you're willing to deal with that and willing to deal with the difficulties of a life abroad. So not that I don't want to be inspirational, but I think being real is also kind of important. Just checking. I am still here, right? Everyone? I hope so.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So this is just a quick slide. Really, just what are you looking for when you think about, I want to live abroad? Live abroad, not travel abroad, but really live abroad. What is it that you're looking for? What these words are here to inspire you to think about this for yourselves. But what kind of a life do you want? Because it will affect where you move. For example, if you're someone who wants to feel safe, secure, and understand everything that's going on, then you might choose countries where you feel more comfortable in terms of the language, or you might choose very developed countries where everything is very predictable and there's an infrastructure. If you're looking to be impactful, that might then thinking about what you do for a living and where you can make an impact. But if you're thinking about where can I be creative, well, there's certain places and ways of life that might fill up your creativity, for example, or they might be inexpensive enough where you can have an art studio or whatever. And so just, thinking about what's really important to you in your life when you think about, because if you're going to go ahead and rip up your current life and move to another country, you might as well do it in a way that you want to live, right? So just thinking about that, what kind of a life are you looking for? So these are just some words that I came up with. Do you want a really purpose-driven life? Are you moving abroad for your career? Are you looking abroad to make an impact in the local community? Are you looking to move abroad to save a bunch of money because it's less expensive there? If you want to have a meaningful life, what does that mean to you? And how are you gonna find that in the places that you're moving? And then, if you're looking for a joyful life, what does that mean? And what countries have you always been drawn to that you think, and honestly, you don't know anything till you move there. It's true. But where do you think that like you might feel joyful? So these are just some examples. There are so many more, but really thinking about like, what are you actually looking for in your life when you move? Okay, and this is where I'm gonna just get a little preachy for a second. So I think right now, when people like are especially motivated by fear and they want to make like a quick decision, it's like, what country am I going to move to? Okay, yes, there are many countries, and each country has their own sort of set of visas and ways that you can move to those countries. But what I want you to do first is think from the inside out. What is the value? And I say professional value, and I'm just making some assumptions. I could be wrong. But I'm just assuming that people on the call are not like, you know, multi-millionaire investors, for example. If you are, then we can have another talk. But just like your professional value is what's probably going to give you the most leeway in terms of where you can move. We'll talk about this, but I want you to think from the inside out. What value do you provide to a country versus where do you get to move, if that makes sense? So hopefully I can make this make a little bit more sense in a second. So it's really not like, where do I want to live? It's where am I in demand? And countries really reveal what their labor market needs are. Don't worry, this is not going to become an economics lesson, but countries reveal like what their needs are through their immigration policies. So even like the US in the future is going to have an immigration policy that will let in immigrants who work in highly skilled areas that we need to fill in the United States. No matter how hardline their immigration policy is, we need talent, top tier talent for certain things. And I'm sure we're going to have an immigration policy that allows that. So you have to think about yourself, like, what do you offer as a candidate? Fine, you don't have to, as a candidate to apply for a visa, think of it that way. Like, what's your degree? You know, do you have a college degree? What industry do you work in or can you work in? It's really important to be honest. Like, what are your career ambitions? Like, do you really want to rise through the ranks of a company? Do you not even care what industry you're working? You just want to move? What hard skills do you have? Like, what tech skills do you have? What language skills do you have? Like, what skills do you have as a professional? It's important to think about your own nationality, because some nationalities have a lot more freedom in, you know, the visas they can apply for versus others. And then also, what is your diaspora? So what is your background, your family's background, and where do your people, where do they find themselves around the world? Because sometimes it's really nice to be in a community of people from your, whatever your race or your culture or whatever. And if you can find your diaspora abroad and then figure out like, well, how did they move? So for example, Americans, just like a general American thing, like, where do a lot of Americans live? Where do they congregate? How did they get there? I think if you know those things, you can figure out like, okay, if they did it and they follow these paths, maybe I can too. And maybe you're like, forget that, I want to go off the path and not go where any Americans are. Fine. But it's just, you know, finding where your people are and figuring out how did they get there. And then whatever networks you have. So if that's like your alumni network from university or whatever, just like name that about you. Know like, oh, I have like my wonderful network. You know, I have this network. I have my alumni association, whatever. And like, those are contacts that help you really globally around the world. Just understand all the things you have to offer. Of course, you also consider like, I want to live in a sunny place. I have a small budget, and so I need somewhere that's really affordable. Or, you know, I have aging parents, and so I want to be close to them. Those are also things to really think about. But when you think about like all of your skills and your career and all that, then you can start to look at like, okay, well, what countries offer visas that are favorable for what I bring to the table? Because that's really getting real. You really need to think about how to establish like your value for a country. So what is that? What am I really talking about? Okay, so there are visas like a golden visa. And a golden visa means you invest like 500, like just as an example, golden visas are somewhat going by the wayside, but just theoretically, you invest in a property, like you buy a property, and you can get a golden visa with a large property investment, like 500,000 euros cash, for example. Like, that's your investment. So what value do you bring to a country? A huge injection of capital. Or if you're a business person and you go through a golden visa, sometimes it's like, well, if you create 10 jobs and you in your business in our country, we'll give you a visa. Well, what is the value that you're bringing to the country? Job creation. So that's a big value. So for a lot of people, I think on this call, probably DNV, NLV, it's like the digital nomad visas that are out there and the non-lucrative visas that are out there. What's the value that you're bringing? You're bringing outside income from like your home country or wherever your clients are based, and you're bringing that income and you're spending it in the target country that you want to move to. That's a value for them, right? So that's why they're doing these digital nomad visas. It's valuable to the country because they don't have to pay you. You're not taking any jobs from locals, and yet you're spending all your money in their country. So that's the value that you provide. If you are a skilled migrant, like if you're going to search for this keyword or whatever, it's highly skilled migrant visas is a really good keyword to search for. But if you have a career and there's a lot of different paths for this, but like in healthcare, in nursing, doctors, engineers, tech workers, teachers, even in construction, plumbing, things like that, there are countries that have highly skilled migrant visas, and they often have a really good pathway. And you can sometimes even fast forward that pathway. If you have a job or a career or profession work experience that fits a need of that labor market, those visas are very beneficial. There's of course traditional ways, like you just like literally apply for a job in another country and maybe they accept your application and you can start working there, but that's less likely. And then of course, and we'll talk about being a digital nomad, like a real digital nomad, not these digital nomad visas, where you would just move on a tourist visa and you would leave every time your tourist visa is up. But it's really thinking about, instead of just looking at it from like, where do I want to go? Think about like what countries have the kind of visas where I provide value to them. And I went over this a little bit. Go ahead and like, whatever, screenshot this or whatever, but you can also just look this information up. But these are the types of visas that are out there for you. Like if you want to move abroad, you're going to move with one of these types of visas. Something that I don't address here is also citizenship. A lot of people are starting to look into like their family's background and seeing if they can apply for citizenship in a country where their family's from. And there's lots of very specific things for each country. So I'm not going to get into that too much. One thing I'll say about that citizenship piece is, while these visas might come through for you faster, because the citizenship process could take like 2 years to go through, when you do the citizenship, you literally get citizenship, you're done. You don't have to worry about anything else. Whereas with these visas, and we'll talk about this, but they give you what's called like a pathway to citizenship. So you'll get like the digital nomad visa. It'll be for 2 years. You'll renew it. It'll be for 3 more years. That's 5 years. You have to be in the country for 10 years in order to in order to be able to become a citizen. So now you have to extend your visas for another 5 years, right? And you're a resident there, you live there, but that's how long the pathway to citizenship can be. So if you do have the chance to do the citizenship thing, I wish I had that, you should do that. But otherwise, golden visas, a large injection of capital. I cannot recommend enough to not buy property in a country you've never been to or lived in. I think even if you have that much cash, I think it's crazy, unless you absolutely have to buy a $500,000 property in cash just so you can move somewhere, personally. You can go on a non-lucrative visa, that's retirement visa, and that used to also be something that digital nomads did, but now countries really have these digital nomad visas, which are for people who work, have clients, or have a company, or work remotely abroad and live in the country. Now a retirement visa really is for literally retirement pension money, or like dividends from stocks, royalties, that sort of thing. So very, very passive income. There are family reunification visas. So if your parents or your children happen to live abroad, you can be reunified and come as a family member. And one way, if you want to go quickly, relatively quickly out of a country, and you have the means to pay for a degree, student visas will get you out of the US and into another country as a student, and in some ways, like, how great to be a student again. But just keep in the back of your mind, or research this, not all student visas have a pathway to citizenship. So like if you go to France and you study for 2 years, it doesn't necessarily mean that those 2 years count toward any type of years that add up to citizenship, put it that way. And then I'll stop talking about visas now, but and then the highly skilled migrant visas are a lot of countries around the world have them. Anybody who's moving to Canada most likely is doing it through a highly skilled migrant visa. Also Australia, the UK, a lot of English speaking places that people want to go. New Zealand, they're going through highly skilled migrant visas usually for the most part. And there's usually a point-based system that adds up across like your work experience, your age, your education, and other factors. So just to keep all of that in mind, to make sure everyone is awake and still chatting in here. And so just to clarify, because I think it's important to understand how people are really like moving around the world and how people are becoming resident and like living like comfortably in other countries. So you are really, you don't have to look for a path to citizenship. Like you can just be like, I just want to move abroad for a couple of years and be a resident, and that's fine. It's really fine. But a lot of people are looking to have a passport alternative. So if you're looking for a path to citizenship, that's really like, this is like very formal language on the screen, but a foreign national, you go from being a temporary visa holder, which is like the first year of a digital nomad visa, for example. And then you renew that visa, and after a certain amount of time, you get what's called permanent residency. In a way, it's kind of like a green card, but every country is really different, so don't like hold me to that. And then once you have what's referred to generally as permanent residency, that's when you can now start going through the process of becoming a citizen, right? And when you do that, then you actually have a passport for another country, and you are protected by the rights of that country. And I'm not saying this is what you're looking for, but then and only then would you be able to give up your US citizenship. That's something that you can't give up until you become an actual citizen in another country. But that's way down the line, and almost no one does that. Like the numbers are incredibly low, although way more than they used to be. They're very, very low. So you're going to go from like a temporary visa, whether that's like you're being sponsored by a company for a year, or you have the digital nomad visa that or you're just starting out, then you'll go to permanent residency, and then you'll go to citizenship if that's what you're looking for. Some people live, I just met someone the other week when I was in London, and he came to our meetup, and he's been in the UK for 25 years, and he's American. He doesn't care less. He's not going to become a British citizen. Like he's just going to live the rest of his days in the UK as a permanent resident. So just in case you're looking at how to get out of here quickly, you can leave on a tourist visa. You can go to Mexico for 6 months. You can't stay. You had to, if you want to do the other types of visas in Mexico, like a digital nomad type visa, you need to apply for that from here. You can't stay. But if you want to go for 6 months, you can go to Mexico for 6 months. Like if you wanted to be gone for the first 6 months of someone's presidential term, I'm just saying, you could go. You can go to Canada for 6 months. Costa Rica is another example. And then, as a digital nomad, you can go to places for like, 90 days at a time. So you can just leave. You don't have to get a visa to go anywhere. You can be on a tourist visa. Then if you want to get out of here quickly and you kind of want to stay somewhere, but you don't have anything yet, Germany, you can land in Germany on a tourist visa and look for a job. And there's a couple ways to do this now. They've actually opened it up. There's something called the Chancenkarte, which is the opportunity card. And then there's also just like literally going to Germany and just looking for work. Because like once you're there, it's easier to look for a job, right? Looking for work, getting a company to sponsor you. I actually did this. And then you can get the visa to stay. So you can land in Germany on a tourist visa and seek work. The Netherlands has what's called the DAFT, which I won't get into too much, but it's great for Americans because it's not a visa, actually. It's a treaty. It's called the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty. It's like left over from World War II. Basically, the Dutch can come to the US and start a business and work quite easily, and you can move to the Netherlands. It doesn't have to be Amsterdam, can be anywhere in the Netherlands. You put like 4,500 euros in a Dutch bank account, fill out the paperwork, and start a business, any business. You can make socks, you can do anything, it doesn't matter. And as long as you're running a business and you keep that 4,500 euros in the bank account minimum, you can stay on the DAFT, and there's a pathway to citizenship from there, DAFT. And Spain, you can do the digital nomad visa for Spain either before you go, or you can go to Spain and try and get the digital nomad visa. It's not always like that. And for Portugal, it's not like that. I know people want to move to Portugal a lot. Okay, and I'm not advocating visa runs, but if you have kids, obviously you cannot do this because they need to go to school. But if you are unencumbered by little ones and you can kind of move around and you have a job that you can just take with you as a digital nomad, you just go to certain countries, you kind of set up a life there a little bit, you're only on a tourist visa for 90 days, and then you have to leave for sometimes 24 hours, sometimes 72 hours, and then you just come right back in, get another tourist visa, and stay for another 90 days. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I'm saying a lot of people do this, and that's how digital nomads basically exist in a lot of places around the world. So if you want to know how to get out quick, here's some examples. Like I said, becoming an expat, like actually moving abroad, it's a lengthy process. It's long, it's hard. There's so much paperwork involved, and you have to get it translated and notarized and do it in the right order and get all your paperwork together and apply for a visa. And it's complex. So if you just want freedom and you don't necessarily want to start a whole new life somewhere else, then instead of a permanent type of expat life through visas and residency, you can do like a semi-permanent, right? Like you can rent for long periods of time Airbnbs. You could do van life or something like that to become more nomadic. I'm a huge fan of house sitting, but you can get house sits for even in the US or, in Canada where you get like 6 months, you can do a house sit in Canada for like 5 months and live in Canada while house sitting in a semi-permanent way. That's a really long time to live somewhere, five months or so. And then, you can become from like temporary, you can like cycle, you can do a big adventure basically. If you want to change your life, do something nuts, like cycle from Alaska to Ushuaia in Argentina, or get on one of those 9-month cruises and work from there, or become a digital nomad, or just actively travel all the time. Like there are alternatives if getting all of this stuff straight at once and like physically actually moving abroad is not something that you think you can do right now. But if you do, I just want to give you a timeline, because realistically, like you can't just go now if you're actually going through this process. So the first phase, which is basically like actually figuring out where you want to move and then what you need to do to get there in terms of like the visa application and all the paperwork that's required. This process, I say 4 to 10 months. I'm going to say about 4 to 5 months of you getting it together, like actually doing everything for this is about 4 to 5 months time. And that's a long time. So basically you're going to get everything that's required together for your visa. You're going to submit that, hope that you got everything right and they don't come back to you to fix anything, because that'll, put you back at the end of the queue and you have to start over. If you get it all right, it could take about 3 months to get an approval back. That's kind of how it works for most of the places that I know where people are moving right now. Kind of concurrently, so not necessarily that, then this, but phase 2 is like you have a life here that you got to get rid of. Like you have to either sell it, donate it, give it away, you're going to pack it, or you're going to store it. And if you don't want to store it and pay storage fees, then you've got to deal with all your stuff, right? So you got to pack up all your stuff, sell your stuff. You got to deal with like being sort of homeless for a little while you go and, all that stuff right before you leave. You got to get all your healthcare stuff, do everything you can in the US, because while it's still familiar, and because I really want to say this, like just especially because I'm talking to this community, you don't want your like first intercultural experience to be like a gyno visit, like get everything done here. Don't do that all for the first time when you're like 2 months into living abroad. Okay. So get all your healthcare done, shots if you need them, all that stuff. Have your goodbye parties. Make sure you do that. I really recommend that. And then phase 3, who knows how long it takes, 2 to 6 months of like when you actually move abroad and get settled in, you're not going to be settled for a long time. It really will take like 2 months to like get all the paperwork. Like once you move, there's a lot of paperwork and things that you also need to do, and you have to get like Wi-Fi and figure out how to get cable or whatever, and figure out how to rent a long-term apartment and all that stuff. And you're going to have appointments for your visa. If you have kids, you'll have to do like shopping, back to school shopping, so they somewhat feel like a local. Figure out language schools and learning the language, and that process also takes like, let's say 2 to 6 months, but it could be longer. So this thing is a year. You know, this is a year that you're going to dedicate to the process of moving abroad. Now, I deal a lot with queer clients, so you know, if your values align with that in general and you consider yourself an ally, these countries are LGBTQ friendly. So if you're thinking like, well, I can move anywhere in the whole world, if it interests you at all to move somewhere where LGBTQ people aren't persecuted and can live a happy life, these are the sort of the top 20. There's a lot of lists that have like indices of top countries. Here's a list of the top 20. And then just additionally, where people like to live, like Australia, people mention Finland a lot. Guam is just interesting because it's like a US territory. New Zealand is like, it's a technicality that it's 24 in my opinion. Just for context, the US is 25. And then a little bit further down the list, but a lot of places where people really like want to move to, I've also included so you can see. And the bolded ones are where the visas are a little bit easier for people who are like digital nomads or remote workers to move to. So just in case your values align with this. I don't want to take up too much more time. So just again, like just generally speaking, super hard. Like it is a complex process to move abroad. These are challenges that you might face as someone moving abroad as a future expat or a current expat. And then moving abroad as a queer person, just because, you know, this is a slide I show in other contexts, but, you know, it can be even more difficult, and there's things to take into consideration, just little things, you know, like do they recognize your marriage? So if you're moving abroad with a spouse, can you move abroad together as a couple? Do you both have to get your own visas independently of one another, things like that. And I can go into more detail on that if anyone actually has questions. So essentially, look, like think about like your ideal lifestyle. So what's the kind of life that you're looking for, right? The visa availability based on the professional value that you provide to that country. And then also, we didn't talk too much about this because how long is a piece of string? It is so hard for me to tell you what your budget needs to be because everybody's budgets vary wildly. Like what some people would think is super expensive, other people think is like really cheap. So it's hard for me, but understand like what your budget is. And then when you kind of put all those three together, like the Venn diagram of that, that's your target country or countries to start considering of where you're gonna move abroad. And that was a very fast way to explain that, but just gonna do that quickly. So here's what you should do like right now. In order to move, start doing your research and just, you know, there's no way to know the right answer, but like just start comparing and contrasting countries that you might want to move to based on lifestyle, ideal life vision, and like how you might actually get a visa. Research the visas that are available and the value that you provide to those countries. Do join country and city specific Facebook groups. Do not take those as gospel. I promise you, nobody knows everything that they're saying. Like everyone makes valid points in them. I run a group too, but you have a lot of people who don't actually know answers or who just have like a singular experience that they're sharing, but it doesn't mean that it's your experience. So use it as like an aggregate of information, but not as fact. If you want facts, please work with a relocation consultant. I have a network of them, but these are people who, they're also called destination service providers, DSP. They live in the country and they will help you relocate. You pay them, but they will help you from real estate to visas to immigration to figuring out what to buy at the grocery store, literally. So if you have the means, it is a great way to get yourself better situated. If you have kids, look into whether you want international schools or local schools. There's like a very large discussion around that. And honestly, unless you're going to go there and do like a recce mission and check it out, just like get in on the Google Street View if they have it, literally turn corners, literally just experiment of like, what does it actually look like to live there in the town or the city that I'm thinking about? Like get granular with it. And then you can do a cost of living analysis. There's a website, Numbeo, numbeo.com, and you can compare and contrast cost of living in certain places. But yeah, make it real for yourself. And then at the end of all this, if you really want to make it real, go to the government website of the country, download the visa application. That's real. Like, you can do that. There's a link, there's a PDF, and you can download it and you can start filling out that visa application, and that will actually make it real. And then at home, really a big first step for you, just like start dealing with your stuff here. Really start dealing with your stuff. Sell it, donate it, trash it, keep it, maybe store it. Start mentally labeling everything in your house. Would I keep this? Do I want to bring this? And if it's something that you would throw out, just throw it out. You really don't need it. Don't get anything new, like minimize, maintain your current lifestyle, and start focusing on experiences, not gifts, especially around the holidays. Yeah, and just get yourself organized. Get your birth certificates in order. Make sure you have a passport. I'm starting to hear that there's long lines to get passports, so I'm talking to a group of people that probably has passports, but get your passports in order. I have second parent adoption process. Like, if you're queer and you have kids, do your second parent adoption. If you haven't already, make sure you own these kids as much as you can own them. Do all your beneficiary stuff with your bank accounts. Make sure you have all of your paperwork like that lined up, and then consolidate your money. If you're someone who has like a lot of little bank accounts or a couple of credit cards, just start to consolidate it so you don't have to manage and keep track of all these things once you are living abroad. I think I'm gonna pretty much stop talking now. Here's a lot of ways that you can either work with me or join our free community if you're looking to be a queer, or if you're queer, but like if you want to join our expat community, you can. And my socials are there. So yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know this is a time where, you know, everyone is kind of wondering about this. So yeah, please do not hesitate to reach out. And if you all have questions, that was a little bit quick and it was a lot. So ask away.
Wow, that was awesome and so much knowledge. I put in the chat, I was like, I knew she was an expert, but like, damn, that's a lot of information. No, that's good, but that's good, but that's what you need. And also, I think even for me to wrap my brain around all of the things that need to be done and the timing and the process, and of course how every country is different, but I think you've given a really good explanation of kind of what that looks like on a large scale, and then also giving people a little bit of paths of, okay, where do they go next? So thank you. I think, like, on behalf of everyone, thank you. I think people are going to get so much out of this. I have a couple questions here that you just started to answer at the end when you were talking about like the DSPs. So Siobhan was saying that she's lived abroad before just for 4 years, but that was on an employed basis. This time I'll be self-employed, so I'd really like to learn any of available or reliable agencies that could help with tax, insurance, health and business, etc. And Jen also asked a similar question about that, about like finding employment and where you might go to find a job. So can you talk a little bit more about like maybe if a DSP is the answer, or if anything else that could be helpful there?
Okay, so those are two very different and very large questions. So I'm going to start with like working with a relocation consultant. So a relocation consultant in country can help you for things that are for that country. So for example, real estate, like finding a place to live, and you would work with a relocation company to deal with your visa process. So they will help you get all of your paperwork in order, and then they have immigration lawyers on staff that will then help with all of your immigration needs. Like actually once you submit it and all the complexities around the actual visa, you can totally do it on your own. It's just that if you want a shortcut, I really do recommend that. So when it comes to taxes, this is especially for a US audience, like this is probably one of the most difficult things about being an expat from the United States. Every April, all of your fellow expats are just like chilling, enjoying the spring, and you are like dealing with taxes. And it's super annoying because the US, except for one other country that's very small, the US is the only country that makes you deal with your taxes both in your home country and abroad. So you will, if you work for yourself, and if you have like an LLC in your home country in the US, for example, you'll be getting paid into that LLC. So that's income that you're getting in the US. But you'll be, and again, I am not a tax professional, so please seek a professional. But you pay your taxes in the country where you're the resident. It's complicated, and you know, a lot of times the times when you pay your taxes in one country don't line up with April 15th, so you're filing an extension in the US. But you pay the taxes of the local country. So you're going to show them all of your income and you're going to pay taxes there. but you have to then show that you paid taxes as a resident in that country to the United States. So you're going to file your taxes in the US. Your regular old US tax accountant won't know what to do with your international taxes. So you will probably have a tax person in the country where you're a resident, and you'll probably have a tax person in the US just to like not mess anything up if you care about this sort of thing. Or you could, there are companies like Greenback Expat Taxes or others who do know about international taxes specific to a US citizen, and you can hire them to sort of, you know, like deal with both of those processes. But it is like the single most annoying and difficult thing is the taxes piece as a US citizen. You'll do it, everybody does it. But yeah, so you will pay in the country where you live, but you also have to file back at home. So I hope that's clear. It's as clear as it can be without like doing it every year.
Yeah. And Jess, you said that that's only like the US is the only place that does that, right? Because I know there's a few people on the call that are based in the UK as well. So for them is that it's
every other country does a residence-based tax. If you're from the UK, okay, but you live in Spain, you pay in Spain, and the UK doesn't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Very lucky. Good for you. And then no, it's just silly and hard. Okay, and then when it comes, so the question about jobs, I don't see it exactly. So
yeah, if you have resources for places to look for jobs, if you do try to just land there first and then find employment, recognizing that that might be like a country by country answer. And Jen specifically said like places that might be open to hiring expats where you might look for that kind of employment.
Okay, so every country has their own like jobs board that everyone knows, you know? And so when you get to each country, you'll start asking around, talk to the expat community there, and like you'll look for jobs boards and things like that. You'll also talk to expats about like what kind of jobs do expats get here like that. You know, like in some countries it might be being an English teacher, but in others there might be like great startups and a cool like tech scene and things like that. So you just kind of will know that obviously going in, but the jobs boards are really specific to each country. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but the odds of you sitting, for example, in the United States and just like applying for a job in Germany, if you don't have a work visa already, why would the German company ever consider you over like a German who is already there or an expat who already has the right to work in Germany, right? So that's why Germany, as an example, makes it a little bit easier for you to move on like the Chancenkarte or just like to look for work once you're in the country. Because at least once you're there, then you can just start applying for jobs. But I mean, if you think about it from the other way around, like why would a US company just like hire somebody from France who doesn't have the right to work in the United States? It's very unlikely. So that's why if you did used to work for like a multinational and they placed you abroad, that's a way that people do it from within their own company to move. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to be murky on details. It's just every country has like their own jobs boards, for example.
No, I think that's great. And I think that's very good advice to seek out the help of the expat community and to ask around and to kind of figure out where those places are listed. So I think that's great. We have 2 more questions and I know we're coming up on the end. So for those of you who have to drop, you know, no worries, but Jess, I know you're okay with going like a couple minutes over so we can get these last 2 questions answered. Mm-hmm. And of course we'll have the recording, everyone. So you'll know, we'll put that in the member hub as well. Pamela has a question about spending extended time abroad. So she's saying she'd love for you to expound on just spending extended time abroad because her daughter is starting a family, so she doesn't want to like fully move and leave her, but would love to experience a softer and kinder space and wanted to know if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah, I mean, if there is income, like if you can do it without needing to have a fixed job abroad, you know, if you have a job that either you can do remotely or you have like pension or whatever, it's awesome. you can definitely do that, and it's a great way to go. I mean, most tourist visas, if with a U.S. passport, I'm just speaking about the U.S., you get about 90 days in most places where you would go on vacation as a tourist, and so you can spend. So if you go to Europe, that 90 days is for all in the Schengen zone, right? And so you have to research what countries those are. So you can't spend 90 days in France and 90 days in Spain and 90 days in Portugal, but only 90 days in all of the EU, basically. But otherwise, I mean, you can go spend 90 days in Australia and go spend, 5 weeks in Japan, and you can go spend 6 months in Canada. And if you're able to, and you're not looking for something permanent, that's a really nice way to sort of bounce from place to place, but spend longer term there. And that's why I really recommend house sitting, because when you do that for an extended period of time, sort of being really mobile, it's tiring. And you get kind of sick of like dealing with like hotel Wi-Fi or lobbies, or, just like really traveling for that long. If you do house sitting, you are taking care of someone's house. They're usually not paying you, but you're also not paying them. And you're living in like a house or an apartment. And it's nice to be like in a home, and you're probably caring for someone's dog or cats or something weird, like a lizard or something. But, I've done 18 of them. 18 house sits for various amounts of time. And it's a great way to live in a local neighborhood. It's kind of like what you wanted Airbnb to be a long time ago, that Airbnb is not anymore, and you don't have to pay for it, basically. So I hope that helps, but I think that's a great way to move around the world and to see so much without committing to a country. I did just get a question come through about how to find house sitting gigs. There are a lot of house sitting websites. Trusted House Sitters has become the big website to look on, trustedhousesitters.com. You have to join, you have to make a profile for yourself, get as like anyone you've ever house sat for before, even for like a week or a night watching their cat, whatever, like get a profile, get some recommendations on there, and start looking around. Oh yeah, you're working with Trusted House Sitters and Home Exchange. Bada bang, see?
We got a webinar coming out with them to be perfect.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah. Do that. It's a really great way. And you don't know what's happening, but like that's happening out there, because they also have a home. They want to leave their home. They don't want to rent it out and like get rid of all their stuff. They want to leave their house as it is, but they want someone to take care of their house. I've done house sits before for long periods of time where I didn't even watch an animal. I just had to make sure like the gardeners came and the swimming pool cleaner came and, just kind of help manage the house. So yeah, but Trusted House Sitters, and there's a lot of other ones once you start looking into it.
Okay, last question. This came in from Libby. She said she worked in Poland for 8 years, can't afford to pay rent in the USA while also out of the country. She's 57 years young. She'd like to work in Spain in social media marketing, learn Spanish, and stay there permanently. Is it possible?
I feel like I'm on a game show. It is possible. It's possible, but especially with Spain and Portugal, please keep in mind, you would really rather get clients from outside of Spain and move to Spain on a digital nomad visa, or also a non-lucrative visa, depending on your situation. So if you want to do like social media marketing, get clients, start now or continue now, and move on the digital nomad visa. If you move to Spain and somehow, however it happens, if you get local work, the pay is very, very low, like very low. And so, which is like fine, because if you want to stay in Spain and you're making like enough to live in Spain, it's like fine, but you will never be able to save enough to like come home for 2 weeks and visit your family. It's like the pay is like very low. So the best thing to do is like do the agency model from international clients. A certain percent, something like 20% of your clients could be from Spain, but not all of your clientele. And then go on the digital nomad visa. That works. And then there's a pathway to citizenship and extended stay from there.
So helpful. Jess, thank you so much. I know you've got on the screen a couple of ways that people can get in touch with you. For the sake of saying it out loud, can you tell us a little more about how people can follow up with you for more questions, where they can go to learn more about Rainbow Relo, your book, everything? Tell us.
Yeah. You can find everything like my book, and I obviously, so there's ways to work with me like this. Right now, you can book like an hour to chat with me where I can just help you figure out like what your next steps should be. And essentially what I do is I'm before the relocation person. Like I basically help you, like, here's the whole world, and we filter it down to like 1 or 2 countries that make the most sense for you. I can get really real about what life is like in certain places, the realities of it, you know, and also just like looking at all those factors that we talked about in this presentation and helping you nail down like where to actually start looking to move. Or we can go through like the custom strategy is basically like, I can help you plan out your entire move. It's a 4-week strategy. You can see it on my website. A much cheaper way to have access to me is to buy the How to Move Abroad and Why It's the Best Thing You'll Do book. It's on my website. It's also on Amazon. Beth is mentioned in it. And my community on Facebook is Queer Expats Worldwide. So if that's of interest, you can also check it out there, and also just email me, like, or DM me. It's fine. I totally know there's so many questions out there right now. So I'm super happy to help there. And then I also have a podcast where we try and go through like country by country, talking to a relocation consultant who gives you the, like, how to actually do this and how to move to these places. And then also an interview with like an expat to talk about what life is actually like in that country. So that's Adventure
Amazing.
World. Yeah.
Jess, thank you so much. I know everyone got so much out of this. Really appreciate you taking all the time. Everyone else, looking forward to hearing more about the adventures that await you. If you're going on this journey, go ahead and post in the member hub. I'd love to hear about your stories and what you find out. And I hope you all got so much out of this. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye for now. Thanks,
Bye.
Jess.
Thank you, Beth. Bye.